And so we were kind of like, we finished the song and we were like, this is the direction. This feels fresh. This feels mean. And I think we needed that edge on this album.
Yeah, definitely. You got me interested now because I also play guitar. Now I got to go play around and find out if it's a drop B tuning or.
Yeah, I think so. I think it is. Yeah.
That's
So I was
awesome.
like, can I sing over this? What
Right.
I mean?
Yeah.
Like from there, I was like, I had one like 30-second bout of self-doubt, and then we got the track going, and I was like, oh, we could totally do this. This makes sense.
What's up, guys? It's Ryan with Ethereal Metal, and I'm here today with Amanda, Eva Marie Lyberg of Eva Under Fire. Last time we spoke, it was during Love, Drugs, and Misery. So, yeah, I think it's safe to say that things might have escalated musically a little bit, no?
Yeah, this record is a little meaner, a little more, I would say confident overall, I mean, we really found our stride this time.
That's awesome. So, how have you been since then? Everything's been going well?
Yeah, things it's been a little crazy. We did a lot of touring on that last record, and then we thought, we were going to be, bold and say we could finish album 2 in like 6 months and just keep going, because we were on such a trajectory, and then surprise, surprise, 2 years of writing later, right? But I mean, it was so worth it. Looking back, we needed to have that time to really, I think, do this whole self-discovery journey. I don't think if we would have rushed it, that we would have had what Villainous ultimately became.
That's awesome. Cool. And just for fun, before we start, Amanda, I have to ask, you've somehow balanced being a licensed therapist, a touring musician, and a Detroit grinder who slept in Walmart parking lots chasing this dream. At what point did you look around and think, yeah, this might officially be above our pay grade?
Right. A lot of complicated stuff going, from 0 to 100 as of late has made me be like, man, are we doing the right thing? Right. I mean, when you're hanging out in the studio for 2 years and it takes you that long and you're like, is this the right approach? But I think, sometimes we look back at those Walmart parking lots and we're like, those were the simpler times.
Right.
Now that we're out here trying to do what we're doing at this high of a level, things get complicated, so I do think, sometimes you struggle a little bit with doubt, but ultimately, I'm really proud of the process that we've taken.
Things that stood out right away with Villainous, as I went through the promo, was the title itself, because it kind of flips like this familiar idea on its head. Was there a specific moment where you realized that setting boundaries or choosing yourself could actually make you the villain in somebody else's story?
Yeah, I did. Actually, when my dad passed, and a lot of things were, as you said, flipped on their head. And I was getting these messages from family members about how I was supposed to be behaving, and hey, we saw you the other day. You didn't seem like you were in like a super welcoming mood. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not,
No, right.
And there was a specific accusation actually that a family member had said to me, and they said, it's almost like when your dad died, there was no love lost. And in that moment, I was like, how dare you? How dare you assume to know anything about my experience? And that was at the point where I was just kind of like, I have to do this grieving thing by myself. Like I have to walk this journey by myself, because, I have a lot of people in my life where, my family's very close connected. My personal circle of friends, very close connected, but like everybody was trying to understand it, but they couldn't. Nobody else was me, So I think that was the moment where I was just kind of like, you know what? Think whatever you want about how I'm acting or what I'm saying or whether or not I'm around. I have to figure out how I feel. And that was the moment that I really started to prioritize this journey.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm really sorry to hear that happened. That has to be extremely difficult to go through. I've been through, something similar. in that kind of just people not being able to recognize that you're allowed to feel emotions, right? That you're allowed to grieve. And I think that it's really amazing that you're able to speak about that so openly. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think it's like whenever anyone goes through that kind of gut punch moment and you go, well, I guess no matter what I tried, no matter what I said, no matter what I did or didn't do, apparently this person thinks that I'm doing it all wrong, and like I think because of writing this album and talking about it openly, like you said, with like friends and other people in my life and
Yeah.
here on podcasts and stuff,
Right.
it's like people do, they have that relatability moment. They're like, oh yeah, I've been there. Or like, oh, I have a moment like that looks like that in my life. And so I think it's just this really cool way of connecting in a very human space. It's not just about
Absolutely.
those specific
Yeah.
experiences, it's about what they mean.
Exactly. And you kind of described this record as kind of like a journey of self-discovery as well.
Yeah.
Um, as both a songwriter and a therapist, did making Villainous force you to confront anything about yourself that you hadn't up until now fully processed?
Oh, 1,000%. So, on the album, you'll hear a song called Dark Soul.
Oh yeah.
And
Mhm.
that was me looking in the mirror going, wow, I don't care what everybody else says. Maybe I should.
Mm.
Like, that was me going like, is this bad? And then there's
Right.
there's a moment in
Yeah.
the song where it's like, I needed you to make me brave, but I don't know if I can stay this way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like this whole but it does, it challenges when you go through those gut-wrenching kind of moments, it challenges you to maybe bring out a different side of yourself. And
Mm.
the
Absolutely.
the integration of that's not always pretty.
Yeah. No, it's not. It's not. I think when people need to see that other side, like sometimes it's just needed, right?
Yeah.
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 No, absolutely. Um, you so my own name feels like a statement of self-worth in the middle of a bunch of noise. I know you were talking earlier about pressure even within the family. More from maybe even like fake connections as well. Was that born more from a personal experience like what you were describing just a moment ago? Was it something more in the industry or kind of a mix of both?
I think it's a process. It was a reflection of a process. So, you had said Amanda and Eva Marie, right? Like those are
Yeah.
two different settings. When I started in this career path as a musician, I thought, I am a licensed therapist, and maybe ethically that doesn't make sense to go by Amanda all the time, right?
Mm,
I thought ethically I was responsible for keeping those worlds and those parts of myself separate. And what I figured out along the way is that they're not separate, and I can't separate them. She is
exactly.
me,
Yeah.
regardless of what the thing is, right? So
Right. Right.
Eva started as a song reference, and then everybody at the live show was like, "Are you Eva?" And eventually, the short answer was just yes.
Right.
And so it
Yeah.
felt it felt authentic. It felt like this was a part of me that even the people that were like listeners, I felt like they gave this crown to me of Eva,
Yeah.
and I was
Yeah.
like, "That's so cool." Um, but it wasn't a full me. It wasn't all of me. It
Mm,
wasn't the whole story. It was a part of me.
yeah.
And I felt like on this record, I wanted to explore the whole thing. And so I put that down. And now I just go by Amanda because that's who I am.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I also wanted to ask, you also approached this album differently in terms of the band dynamic as well, really opening things up and asking everyone to bring their own experiences into the writing. What changed when you did that? And did anything surprise you or end up kind of reshaping um, like any specific song that you had originally intended it to be, but then afterwards it ended up being something different?
Yeah, you know what? There was an experience that was kind of like that. Trying to remember exactly what song it was now. Survive My Scars was one of them. And
Yeah.
I think mostly what changed, and it wasn't surprising, the dynamic, I think it just brought us closer. We started to have amongst those of us in the band just conversations that were more human, that were more personal. And I don't think that we had ever gotten to a place like that outside of just writing together and jamming in the garage together for 15 years. It's
Yeah,
just kind of
yeah.
like, oh, these are the homies, that have been showing up here for, 10 years together. So yeah, yeah, yeah. But we protected that space. I think there was not a lot of conversations about what was happening in our personal lives outside of that until this album. Because we'd all been through so much together, we were kind of forced to sort of be like, yeah, I guess we are all on the same page with this stuff. It's hard out here. It's hard to stay in an environment that is, everybody tells you about the entertainment world is not kind. Like, no, it's not kind. It's not easy. It's, like I
Absolutely.
said, those
Yeah.
Walmart parking lots started to become like, oh, the good old days,
Right. Yeah.
before everything was so complicated, because it gets complicated really quickly, So I
Yes,
think,
absolutely.
it was this, we challenged ourselves to be like, all right, no more just chasing dreams and calling it dreams. We need to explore the uglier side of this industry. We need to explore the uglier side of how
Yeah.
we feel about this emotionally, because it's very taxing. It's very draining if we're not honest about it, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And you had mentioned Survive My Scars. So that track, Don't Say I'm Okay. And also, I think it's Hello Hollow, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Those three songs really, really grabbed me, really hard with some of the things that I've been through personally. I just wanted to ask if you could kind of talk about, kind of the feelings behind those tracks and what really brought them to be.
Thank you. Yeah. So Hello Hello was directly as a result of the loss of my dad. So I
Yes.
wrote that song in 2018 when he passed away, and I never got to explore that in the studio.
Wow. Okay.
So it's been years for me. So revisiting that was important and really cathartic. Um, Survive My Scars was something that kind of came as a result of like one of those conversations amongst the bandmates where we were all kind of like bitter. We were
Yeah.
all bitter. We were
Right.
all a little jaded. We were all a little bit like, we've been through some things at this point.
Yeah.
We need a song that kind of spells that out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it originally it started as kind of two different ideas, and it
Mm.
merged, which was cool.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think that was a surprising outcome in a really cool way. And the more I listen to it now, I'm like, oh, maybe it always did belong together. Um,
Right.
so it was interesting, just the writing about that one. And then Don't Say I'm Okay was funny because, you know, we a couple of the bandmates, right? We were very big fans of new metal. We came onto the scene with new metal, and
Yeah. Yeah.
so we wanted something bouncy and jumpy, but we also kind of like looked at like 90s grunge music a little bit with the messaging, because 90s grunge always sounded happy, but it never was, right?
No.
It was like always so dark,
Yeah.
such a different turn when you looked at like lyrical content, right?
Yeah. For sure.
And so that was kind of the goal for Don't Say I'm Okay. Um, and I think that was just like those ideas kind of came together in a really fun way. And then when we were in studio with Don't Say I'm Okay, kind of like um, figuring out that we wanted this dancey beat, but
Yeah.
like the
Yeah.
song itself was heartbreaking.
Mm.
And we kind of looked at one of our old songs, very first record. I think it was on the Anchors album, called Until Forever.
Oh yeah, of course.
And we were
Yeah.
kind of like, this is our new Until Forever. This is like the dance song that's gonna like blow things up. But it
Nice.
can be like a listening favorite, but it still maintains that darker energy in the
Yeah.
lyrical content. So I think that was a success.
Yeah. Cool. And also, so even with how heavy this record gets emotionally, it still feels really empowering rather than bleak, right? And I know we're talking about Don't Say I'm Okay, but in particular that kind of dealing with grief and loss, but it does it in a really defiant way. Was that balance intentional from the start?
Yeah, thank you for that. Very defiant.
Yeah.
Self-discovery, I think, is a very defiant process, because you encounter a lot of the not so great emotions, the negative energy, the ugliness of it, and it's difficult to go through. But I think eventually you do recognize through discovering all of those different parts of yourself that you're stronger for it now.
Yeah. Yeah.
That it needed to be that,
Hmm.
and that now I'm secure and feel capable in saying that, like, if I needed to, I could, right? And that's an important feature of like growing up, growing into yourself, like as an adult. I think we have many of those moments.
No,
So
absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's almost
Yeah,
like defiantly saying, yes, all of these are parts of myself, and you don't have to like every part. That's fine.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Setting boundaries and yeah, cool. There are really personal themes as well across the album. I know we talked about family grief, but even growth and loss. Was there ever a specific moment of a lyric that almost didn't make it because it just felt like it was too close to release?
Um, I don't necessarily think so in that way. I do. We have that story on the Love, Drugs, and Misery album with Heroin. That was
The
kind of
heroine,
our,
yeah,
our first moment with that. But I feel like everything on this album was we need more Amanda lyrics, and so I was kind
nice.
of boldly in the studio going on. No, I'm going to say what I need to say, and there was not a moment of like, oh, it almost didn't make it because if I felt like it needed to, I pushed for it, and the
Yeah,
band
absolutely.
collectively pushed for it, and so
Nice.
I think we were a little bit more. Less about, well, what should we do? What shouldn't we? And this was more about if we feel it, it's going on the record.
Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. So I wanted to also talk about influences. You've cited influences like Spirit Box, Find Me the Horizon, Make Them Suffer, Nine Inch Nails. Was there a moment in the studio where you realized that we're taking the band somewhere new for the first time?
Yeah. So when we wrote My Own Name, we also wrote The Words You Say in that like same week. And we were
Yeah.
in London's
Okay.
studio in LA. And I mentioned that we love, like inspired by a lot of new metal because that was just the era that we grew up in. So Chris had this like, bouncy kind of, he loves it, like bouncy, dirty kind of riff,
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I believe it was when we were writing My Own Name. Um, and he dum dum dum, and
Yeah.
so John was like, "Oh, that's cool, but do it on this guitar," and like handed him like a super drop tune. I don't even know what tuning it was in. It was crazy low,
Oh, geez.
and we were like, "Do you see that for our band? Like that sonically makes sense?" He was like, "It could." And
Nice.
so we were kind of like, we finished the song and we were like, this is the direction. This feels fresh. This feels mean. And I think
Yeah.
we needed that edge on this album.
Yeah, definitely. You got me interested now because I also play guitar. Now I got to go play around and find out if it's a drop B tuning or
Yeah, I think
yeah.
so. I think it is. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
So I was
awesome.
like,
Right,
can I sing over this?
right, yeah.
Like from there, I was like, I had one like 30-second bout of self doubt, and then we got the track going, and I was like, oh, dude, we could totally do this. This makes
Yeah,
so much
just
sense.
yeah, put it out. Yeah, yeah. That's really cool. On top of all of that, you're also about to head out with Five Finger Death Punch coming on July 20th. How are you approaching that run, especially stepping into these kinds of rooms and audiences with Villainous now in tow, or almost in tow, I should say.
Yeah, right. I mean, look, the record comes out on the 10th of July. We go out with
Yep.
Five Finger Death Punch right after that. I mean, Maria
Yeah.
Brink's on the track. It's amazing. I mean, this is the biggest stuff we've ever done. So I think that's the mindset, right? Is like
Yeah.
this is the
Absolutely.
biggest stuff we've ever done, and I think that because we just finished this massive album that is like us coming into our own. I
Mm,
think the only way that you approach like the biggest stuff you've ever done with that kind of mindset is like we're ready, we're built for this, or we wouldn't
yeah.
have just written this album, or we wouldn't have gotten here, or we wouldn't have so there is no room for like self-doubt or like scrambling. Like we're just elevating every single point. And I think that although it's been another grind, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
getting all of the tracks in order and making sure that we like my sound guy just bought a new mixer, so we got like all new things that we're like literally bringing to the we want crowd mics, we want new stage gear, we want costuming. Everything is being elevated, everything serves this villainous world, and like it feels really
Awesome.
great,
Nice.
but there's a lot of work to do. So
Yeah.
but we're ready to
Yeah.
do it, and so that's it. It feels good.
That's really cool. And on top of that, you've also talked about, we mentioned earlier about sleeping in parking lots, grinding throughout the years of touring. If Amanda from those early days could hear this version of the band today, what do you think she would be most proud of?
I think she'd be most proud of the energy that we've cultivated. Like I
Nice.
didn't ever
Yeah.
feel empowered to be negative when I was younger. I always felt like I had to be like the hero kid, you know? So
Mm.
taking the gloves off and really feeling as though I not only belong in this industry, but we collectively as a band have grind for 15 years to be here. And now we're stepping onto the stage, biggest stages of our lives. Like, I think she'd be very proud of the fact that like, we're not only very secure in the fact that we like own our genre now, but like that we believed in ourselves enough to get here this whole time.
Yeah.
You know, it's just I think the whole journey, the energy of it. I mean, that's like the definition of rock and roll.
Yeah, it is.
You
Yeah, it
know,
is.
you can't
Um,
let self-doubt get to you.
no, you can't. Absolutely. And I have to say, listening to the promo a couple of times going through it, this definitely sounds um, like the band has found their identity. It doesn't feel like a an album where a band is still kind of searching for their identity. This feels like it's been found, and now it's going to be executed at a higher level. And I'm really
Yeah.
excited for everybody to hear it coming out soon because that's going to be awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you for that. That was the goal, my friends. I appreciate that.
cool. That's awesome. Um, what is something that you had to let go of, whether it was a specific mindset, a relationship, an expectation, or even a fear to become the person who wrote this record?
Yeah, fear in general, you know, like
Mm, yeah,
and like I said, I was the hero kid, so I always wanted to like protect everybody's
yeah,
story, protect everybody else's experience, you know, like just because I
exactly.
feel a certain way doesn't mean everybody else feels a certain way. And this time around, I was kind of like, well, they get to have their version, but I do too, you know, and I don't want that to prohibit me from really being as authentic as I possibly can be. Um, you know, I think that the people that listen to rock music deserve that. That rock and roll demands authenticity. And I wasn't being my fullest true self, right? I was only offering pieces. And I was like,
Mm,
well, that's not what I want to do. So I guess we got to, you know, take the mask off and rip the gloves off and take out, you know, this is it. This is the whole thing,
like
right?
this is
You
me. You
know,
take it or leave it. Yeah,
yeah. It
yeah.
really, but I didn't I wasn't sure I could do that. Or, you know what I mean? So I had to lose the fear of doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's challenging, right? It's not something that you can just like look at and snap your fingers and it's done,
No, I mean, you were brave enough to chase a dream in the first place. You were brave
right?
enough to be like, oh, I
Yep.
deserve to be a good writer, songwriter. I did, you know, I'm brave enough to do all these things. I'm brave enough to finish my college career. I'm brave enough to do all these things, but I wasn't brave enough to show every part of that story. And I didn't really know how. I was like, well, how do I curate that? And I'm like, you
Yeah.
don't.
What does it look like? Yeah.
Yeah, you don't, you know, like people heard our last album and they thought that it was all hired guns in my band because like everybody thought, well, she's the only one that's in all of the videos online, so she must be like a bunch of hired guns behind her, right? I was like, they don't know. Nobody
No.
knows. We've been in the garage for 15 years. Nobody
Right.
knows. I'm like, they have to know.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah.
I'm like, this
Yeah.
is where we start talking about like, okay, we're gonna get into the weeds, people, because apparently you all have the story twisted.
Been sleeping under a rock.
Right, sure.
Right. If somebody listening to the album while dealing with grief, anxiety, toxic relationships, or even just trying to figure themselves out and their identity, what do you hope that they take away about themselves by the time they hear the last song?
It's gonna suck, but you can do it.
Yeah.
You know, making those decisions. It's
Yeah.
not easy. It's not. There's a reason why people stay in those situations. But a
Mm.
lot of the reason they stay is because of hopelessness and fear and the things that hold them back. And so like
Yeah.
it, you have to know that you can make a different choice, you know, but
Yeah.
you don't feel capable all the time of making that choice. You don't feel like it's gonna actually fix anything. And you know,
Mm.
there's a lot of things that like, you know, but it might suck, but it's worth doing.
Pushing through it. Yeah. That's awesome. I have one final question for you. One of the core ideas in this record is choosing not to let an unkind world define you. So, what's something that you still have to remind yourself not to be bothered by?
Hmm. That's a great question. Not to be bothered by the fact that like my journey doesn't look like somebody else's journey, right?
Mm,
I fall victim to like comparison as well,
sure,
right?
sure. Yeah.
Um, but I think that, you know, reminding myself that my path is still valid and the path that I've taken with the guys that you know, all of us in the band, the project is, you know, we've been around this long for a reason. And
Yeah, exactly.
and we, you know, we just dropped a massive album that we spent 2 years on, so I don't think we're going anywhere.
I was gonna
Right?
say
So
not
it's
anytime
like
soon, right?
this path is like it's ours, you know, and
Yeah,
that
yeah.
matters. It doesn't have to look like somebody else's.
Awesome. So before we go, to those watching, make sure to check out Villainous. It's going to be out Friday, July 10th via Better Noise Music. Pre-orders will be linked in the video description below. And if you're catching them live, Eva Under Fire will be hitting the road with Five Finger Death Punch starting July 20th. Ticket information will also be down below. You're not going to want to miss it. Amanda, thank you so much for your time today.
That's love, friend. Thank you for having me. We'll see you soon. See you out
Yep.
there.